Bernie Sanders went on Morning Joe to issue a warning to people who might be considering voting for a third-party candidate to make a statement instead of falling in line and voting for Hillary Clinton. Let's roll video 6.
I was a third-party candidate. I began my career running as a third party, getting 2% of the vote. And then I got 1% of the vote. So I know a little bit about third party. I'm the longest-serving independent in the history of the U.S. Congress. But I think that before you cast a protest vote, because either Clinton or Trump will become president, think hard about it. This is not a governor's race. It's not a state legislative race. This is the presidency of the United States. And I would say to those people out there who are thinking of the protest vote, think about what the country looks like and whether you're comfortable of 4 years of a Trump presidency.
And addressing, does it feel like you're giving up if you're voting for Hillary Clinton? Here is what he also said on Wednesday.
And I would suggest to those people, let us elect Hillary Clinton as president. And the day after, let us mobilize millions of people around the progressive agenda, which, by the way, was passed, as you know, in the Democratic platform. We worked very hard on that, the most progressive platform in the history of American politics, and say to Secretary Clinton, let us work together to implement that platform. That's where we got to go.
So, Jimmy, what's your theory on Bernie stumping for Hillary?
My theory is that it might not know if I'm right. I just think that I know how I feel. So if people like me, the people he's supposed to be reaching, feel like I do, it's backfiring. Because it makes me feel like, how could you go around for a whole year pointing out all the things that this revolution is trying to work against, and now go, hey, all right, let's put that on the back burner. We're going to do this. And I have two theories, right? I saw Chris Hayes say this on the MSNBC the other night. He said, and he says, I believe that if Donald Trump becomes president, it destroys the Republican Party. And everybody, he had on that guy, I'm going to forget his name, Ben, from redstate.com, who just did a movie about Trump called Sociopath. And he agreed. He's telling people, the Republicans, that if Hillary Clinton becomes president, the next day, the Republican Party goes right on going on because they got something to coalesce against. But if Trump becomes president, it fractures their party, which is fractured right now. Because that's why John Boehner's out, and they had to get Paul Ryan. They had to twist his arm because there's no cohesiveness to the Republican Party. And in fact, some people said that if he becomes president, they'll become a regional party. They'll have to start over again. And this is what really crumbles them. And I agree with that because, as you know, I think that if Trump's president, the natural coalition against him coalesces, right? So you got all the Democrats, all the independents, and the purple state Republicans, and plus he's an incompetent, so he won't be able to get his agenda in. But if Hillary's president, there'll probably be gridlock, but the things that will get done will be the things that splits the Democratic Party. Like right now, Barack Obama's pushing the TPP, and he's a Democrat. So the whole thing about a third-party vote is this is how I look at it, is that no matter who becomes president, I'm going to have to fight both parties against the TPP. I'm going to have to fight both parties to stop foreign wars. I'm going to have to fight both parties to regulate Wall Street. I'm going to have to fight both parties to get single-payer health care. I'm going to have to fight both parties to regulate big pharma. So to get $15 minimum wage in Seattle, guess who they had to fight? They had to fight the Democratic Party in Seattle to get that. So I'm saying that progressives need a movement outside the Democratic Party.
So I totally agree with that. And believe me, the only part I disagree with Bernie on is not that we're going to wait till day one to pursue the progressive agenda. Let's pursue it right now. Let's pursue it through the election. Let's pursue it on day one against Hillary Clinton because she's going to have to be brought there kicking and screaming, et cetera. I understand all that. But I think the main part that you and I disagree on, Jimmy, is I think Trump is too big a risk to take. So you have a nice outlook on it, and if he's elected president, I hope you're right. But the other way that it goes is, no, he's a strong man, and he doesn't really care about the Constitution or our form of government, and he starts to coalesce power like all strong men do, and he breaks a bunch of rules, and nobody does anything about it, so he breaks more rules, and nobody does anything about that. And next thing you know, we're not the country we used to be. Oops, that was a miscalculation that we don't recover from. Now, some of you might think, oh, that's not going to happen. But there's a lot of moments in history where people thought, oh, that's not going to happen. And that's not a risk I want to take with America. So, and about third parties, I actually have a different view now than I did a couple of months ago. First of all, what's been consistent is it's incumbent upon all the media, including us, to cover the third parties. Because don't assume for the American people what they want and don't want. Give it to them. Give them information and let them decide. So I did a story on Jill Stein yesterday, giving her a lot of credit for the proposed pardon of Snowden, Manning, etc. Gary Johnson I agree and disagree with, but we cover his stories as much as we can. I just had a conversation with Jordan Chariton from TYT Politics today saying, let's go, let's keep going on the campaign trail, cover Gary Johnson and Jill Stein more, and you've gone and talked to her, I've talked to her, etc. Okay, but the part that I've changed on is, look, 4 months ago, 6 months ago, I would have said, and I did say, I think they got a real shot. I think this is an interesting election where I wouldn't count them out. Even as late as a month ago, I thought there was a chance that Gary Johnson rises so much that maybe, Ben and I talked about this, that maybe he beats Trump in some states. But it didn't turn out that way. Trump rose back up. Johnson is about where he was. And that's monumentally unfair. He's not in the debates. The media doesn't cover him. Same with Stein. I get it. But nonetheless, here's where we are, less than 2 months before the election. And so it looks like now they're not going to win. And so now, if you're in a swing state, you do have to make a choice. So you can make any choice you like, and you're not going to listen to me or Jimmy. You're going to make up your own mind, right? But having said that, don't kid yourself that you're not making a choice, because you are.
Look, all you have to do is read the Constitution as to why this third-party stuff doesn't work out. You have to have half of the electoral votes, and that has created a binary system. That has created a two-party system that we haven't shaken for 240 years, 60 elections. It never happens. We'd have to fundamentally change how we elect presidents. Maybe just make it a popular vote. That might do it, but we'd have to change that, and we probably should, right? Because we'd all benefit, I think, from having a third party. But it's not. It's certainly not happening in this election. I don't think it's happening in the next one either. We have to change that system. Otherwise, it's simply too hard to get to what is now, to get to 270 now.
If Jill Stein was polling a little higher, my theory is that Hillary would stop courting Republicans and finally come try to get progressives.
Well, what I hope is happening now.
Right? What do you think about that theory, though?
I don't know. It's probably true.
Because she's not coming.
I think she. I don't. Who? First of all, we'll
Ken
find
Salazar,
out. We'll find
Ken
out.
Salazar.
I know, but and then what about? Can we? If we're going to mention Ken Salazar, do we get to mention what are their two names?
Negroponte and Kissinger.
Those guys aren't working for her. Rohit Chopra and Heather Bushi.
Yes, those are great points. They're some really, really solid progressives that the Bernie camp and everybody else is very happy with, that are now part of the Clinton administration, Clinton team, I should say.
Transition team.
Yes. So look, you guys are both right about that. Yeah. You do have Bushi and you have Salazar, and we did a whole story on how awful Salazar is and why that shows that she's going to go in a corporate direction. Look, so I guess I would add this, which I think is monumentally important. Voting for someone doesn't mean you love her, you support everything she does, and you believe in her, and that you are responsible for everything she's ever done in the past and will do in the future. It just means she is slightly better than the other people in the race. That's how voting works. I know that a lot of people think, no, that's not how voting works. I don't know what your alternative theory is. And so if you live in a completely blue state or a completely red state, well, you get to have fun doing those things. And by the way, I don't mean to dismiss that, because there's some value in it. To Jimmy's point, if Jill Stein does really well, or if you're a libertarian, Gary Johnson does really well in some of those blue or red states, well, maybe that gives them more credibility for future elections. I think that's a perfectly fair point. If you live in a swing state, well, it also does that, but then you're making a real choice about which direction you're going. But to me, look, guys, the election is way overhyped, and I know we're guilty of it too. But yes, either way, we're going to have to fight either candidate on all the 5 things that Jimmy listed, right? So the real fight is the revolution. The revolution is an amendment. If you don't get the amendment to get money out of politics, the next election, we're going to have the same stupid conversation. To me, a third party is not going to change the system, especially as deeply entrenched as it is, as Ben just explained with Electoral College, anywhere near as well as an amendment is going to change the system. That's exactly what an amendment is. It changes the system. You're dreaming upon a dream, and bless your heart, I don't want to squash dreams, that many, many elections from now, that a third party has gained enough credibility that they can win, that's a great dream, and I join you in that dream. But meanwhile, an amendment is actually 1,000 times more important, more relevant, more effective, and actually much more doable. So let's all get the amendment together. Screw this goddamn election. Go get the amendment. We think you do it through Wolfpack, wolf-pack.com. Volunteer, become a member. Do anything you can. Fight the fight. Fight the real fight. And then you'll be surprised at how well the elections turn out and how well the candidates are, third party or not, if you actually got the money out of politics. I know because we had a system like that. And in the 1970s, Ralph Nader got Richard Nixon, who was a little past Attila the Hun, to pass the EPA and OSHA because we had an actual democracy. Get the goddamn money out. That's the revolution.